Hello and welcome to our video from oorail. This is another Loco Works Wednesday video, and we're continuing our class 66 railhead treatment train project. So today, if you haven't figured it out already, we're going to go and talk about adding the LEDs, and we're going to do the electronics probably over the next 3 videos or so. So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how I got the red light here to work, and show you some of the options that you can use for adding LEDs to this particular Loco. There are some other things we'll discuss today, like for example, if you look real closely here, especially if I put my hand over it, you will see that there's a very small amount of light bleed through the plastic. I think it's like right here. And that's caused because the LED is basically shining through the plastic, and the plastic is just too thin. So what we're going to do behind the plastic is we'll paint that a darker color, so that this doesn't bleed through. You could probably also use some electrical tape, but we'll just use some paint, and that will stop that from happening. Obviously, this is a model that wasn't designed to have lights running in it, but you can see there it's working really well. And this video, we're only going to go and discuss and show you guys how to go about doing the basics for the LEDs. Next week's video, we'll add a degree of complexity to that, showing you how to wire it up to the Loco's wiring. And then the last video, for the LEDs at least, we'll show you it all coming together. And then we'll continue the rest of the train. We have some body work and some other details to go through. We also need to figure out the circuitry for the train going forwards, to obviously show the headlights and tail lamps on the other end. And then when it's on the end, or going the other way, we want it to basically have the tail lights on. So so yeah, so it's in the video. We're going to go and show you basically what we did. You can see here, I've actually got some wires that are coming out of the roof here, and they're going to a track, to a controller. It's a very simple circuit. This basically has somewhere in the mix, it has so we have a resistor, and I believe it's a 540 ohm resistor, and this is connected to the positive side, and then the other one's just directly connected to the wire. So we used, if I show you here, these SMD, which is a service mount technology, red LED, and basically these are 0603, and they are tiny. Like, to give you an idea, this is the pair of electrical tweezers. They are literally that size, right? They're, when you peel back the film on the strip, they're that small. So when I did this, I thought that maybe they were going to be a little bit bigger, but they're not. So my first bit of advice to you is this 0603 are perfect LEDs for this particular solution. However, unless you are extremely patient or extremely skilled with soldering, even if you're using the like I did, the hot air gun, this will drive you insane. So when you look for these online, whether you buy them on Amazon, which you can go to our Amazon store or shop via the link in the description, and you can find these. or you can get them off eBay or wherever you choose. Buy the pre-wired ones, right? So the pre-wired ones are a little bit more expensive. Trust me, it's just save you a lot of trouble. I think it took me an hour maybe or so to get the hang of soldering these, and even then it took me a couple of goes. I think I lost the first one when I opened the pack. It just went somewhere. I had one move on me when I was trying to solder it to the PCB, so it's just an awful lot of work. So if you can go and spend an extra £1 or two and get the pre-wired ones, basically it's the exact same LED, except that instead of having to solder the wires on yourself, they come pre-wired, and all you have to do then is just drop it in and solder to the other end of the wire, and you don't need anything special. However, if you do want to go this way, and there might be a couple of reasons you'll see in a second why you might want to go this way, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need this kind of a solder paste, and I believe it's called, mine was lead-free solder paste. It's 15 grams. It's not too bad. Basically, this orange nozzle here on the end, you just replace it with the very fine purple one, and you just basically apply a little bit of pressure. It squeezes out a very, very small amount onto the surface, and you basically heat it with a heat gun, which is here. I heated it at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You will melt things, so you be very careful that you don't have the train in the way or something like that. But it does work, and if I have a chance, I will show it to you on camera, though I might melt the camera, so I gotta be careful. The other thing you're going to need, if you do go that route, is a SMD Rework Station, and I'll show you mine in a second. There's a link for that on the Amazon store. You're also going to need these prototyping PCB boards. Now you can buy these on eBay, on Amazon, and they're dirt cheap. I got some on eBay, and I think I got like 500 of them or something for a couple of dollars. So, and all the hours are just a copper sheet with holes in it, and what you can do is you basically can put your wires and stuff in and build a sort of poor man's PCB out of it, and it works pretty well. So I actually, and this might be the reason why you want to use the SME LEDs, is I actually used this to construct basically a insert that goes in the base of the Loco to mount the two rear LEDs. Now, it's too close, and one of the problems I had, if I show you here on the camera, this is what my test first attempt messing with it was. This is actually the LED, and it kind of moved, and you can see it's quite small. It's actually soldered to this, but when I was doing it, it sort of turned around on me. But what I decided to do is you can also see there, if you apply too much heat to the back, you'll melt the board. So this, however, it gives you a good example. What I do is I used a marker to mark out where on the board the thing would fit inside the Loco, and then I basically cut a strip out. So you can see here, this is one where I ended up cutting it out. Now I ended up using the Dremel tool. I tried to score it with a knife, but I had very limited success. Started breaking it off, it started to fragment. So I just took the Dremel tool, and like you saw me take to the roof of the Loco, and I just cut it back and forth very slightly until it scored it enough that I could just snap it off. So I probably should have just kept doing it so that it didn't leave kind of an unclean edge, but for testing out whether it works or not, it was good enough. It's quite simple. I have the red wire here going on the positive side to the resistor, and I just grab the leads, so don't read anything into the colors. I just used two different colors, so I knew one was one, one was the other. So this red wire goes into a 560 ohm resistor, and then the other side of that goes into a wire that goes straight into the positive side of the board, and then the other rail goes directly to the negative side. And I've got the controller wired so that obviously this is the positive and this is negative, so it's going that way. Alright, so it's very easy. I put the controller on about 10-15% power, so it's probably kicking out about you know, by 3-4 volts, so it's sufficient to test. So you can see here I have two wires. I have an orange wire, that's the negative wire, and then I have a black wire, and that's the positive wire. You can see here the orange wire is connected to the negative side. It's wired to the one rail, and then the other one here is connected to the resistor, which is right there. If you can see it, yeah. So the resistor is right there, and it's basically just sort of dimming this down. So what I would normally do is figure out a good enough resistor. So this is bright enough when it's running at a slow speed, but also that it's not like insanely you know, non-prototypically bright when it's running at full 12 volt DC. So the resistor will basically keep that from being too bright, and we'll explain more about that in the next video. The other thing that we're going to do in the next video is show you how to wire it into the DCC plug. Like I told you in the first video, I want to use the DCC plug as a means to harness the wiring. It'll also allow me to separate out, hopefully, the resistor from the actual motor circuitry, so that it doesn't have an impact on the running speed of the Loco. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the body shell off of this and turn it off, just so you guys can see what I did on the inside. Okay, so I've taken the body shell off, and you can see here I have my two wires. They're going into this slightly blackened PCB, and it's blackened basically because I had to go and you know, solder it in there. So one of the things that I was going to do was have this as a complete board that goes all the way across, but after messing with the soldering and the fact that the heat transfers very easily from one side to the other, I decided what I was going to do instead was basically cut this in half and have one board that's on this side and one board on the other side. That way I can wire them and then kind of merge them back at the connection point back here where the plug goes in, rather than doing overly complex wiring here. I should be able to run the wires up and over the motor so that they don't really interfere with anything. I may end up having to 3D print some kind of clip for the wiring, just so it doesn't foul up the motor here as it boogie turns around curves and stuff like that. I will have to experiment with that a little bit, but there's plenty of space in this Loco, especially down the far end, so we can definitely get all the necessary wiring in. I've actually blue tacked this in place, so I'll pull it out and let you guys have a closer look at the board. So it's very simple. You can see there that we've got two, the positive, and actually this is a negative and the positive pads for the wiring. And so what I did was I basically, like I said, took one of these sheets. I applied a small amount of solder paste to both, put the wire through, soldered it so it was perfectly flat, almost like a pad, on both sides. And then once that was completed, I'll try to move this back a little more so it's a little more in focus. Once it was completed, what I did was I let it cool for a little while, and then I reheated it, put a small amount of the solder paste on either side, and I very carefully, with the magnifying glass, picked up the LED. Now the LED has a small green mark or blue dot, depending on the brand that you have, that denotes the side that's positive. And so I lined that up with this side, on the left hand side, and basically once it was heated I dropped it in place. Now when I did this, I had the board kind of like this, so that the LED wouldn't fall off. So it was very important that the solder joints had solidified a little bit, because otherwise you would have just melted it off. Now, and the wires would have dropped out. The other problem that you have to do is you have to basically heat this from the behind the board. You run the risk, if you heat it from the top, of melting or damaging the melting or damaging the LED. So you basically have to heat it from behind, which also runs the risk of dropping the wires out. So it's a bit of a balancing act. It took me a little while to get the hang of it, but once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. However, I know a lot of people don't like to do soldering in the first place, but might want the result. And so the quickest and easiest way to get the result without the crazy soldering is to buy it pre-wired. Then you're just going to end up having to mount it inside the chassis rather than having this board. But this board, as you can see, does provide a way to line things up and make it a little bit easier. So the other thing I was going to show you was what we're going to use for the other end of the Loco. So the other end of the Loco, if I remove this through the roof for now and set it aside. So now, before I set it aside, I'll show you. I used these Crocodile Clips. So I bought a pack of Crocodile Clips off of Amazon. Got like maybe 50 of them, something for a couple of dollars. So the white one here, like I said, was the negative side. So it goes into the negative side, which is the orange cable on the LED, and it goes to the negative side of the track. And then this yellow one here is plugged into black wire, which is the positive side of the LED, and it goes into the 560 ohm resistor, which then goes into the red wire, and that was the positive side of the track. So that I'm going to set aside, but you saw it's a relatively easy way to test it and make sure that things are working before you start soldering or anything like that. So let me have a look. So let's go show you the other end. So the other end of the Loco is a little bit different. We decided that we had this light at the top, and then we also had the marker on one side and the headlamp and the marker on the other side. So to accommodate this, what I'm actually going to use are these kind of cool things. They're called LED Sequins, and they're actually for wearable computing. I think people use them to add lights and LEDs and stuff to their hats and shoes and things like that. But you probably notice right away, it's basically the same as the other thing. It's a slightly larger LED, and then it also has the solder pads already done for you. So all you have to do is put the wire through each hole, solder it, and you're done. So you can do that with a regular soldering iron, or you could do it with the soldering paste as well. You just have to heat it from behind. And you can see there, one side has a plus and the other side has a minus, so for the positive and negative on the LED. So these are I'm going to use for the top. Now I was going to show you installing the thing in today's video, and I went looking around because I know I have a whole bunch of these, but I could only find the bright white and the green ones. I couldn't find the warm white ones or the red ones. So I'm going to show you this with the bright whites, but it's not quite it's too bright and too kind of pure of a white. The Class 66 that we're looking to go for had a sort of more of an amberish kind of warm white color to their headlights. So they still do. So we're going to go and I've ordered some of the correct ones, and they'll be here over the weekend. So we'll show you these installed in the Loco in the next video. But I'll just go show you quickly how to test these, so you can check for kind of light bleed and stuff like that. Okay, so it's a very similar setup. You can see I've kind of looped the resistor through the hole of the positive side, and it's connected to this green wire, and then I've just clamped the negative side onto the wire. And what we're going to do is we're just going to connect these to the track like we had the other ones. So I'm going to connect the green to what was my positive side of the track, and the white one to the negative side of the track, like so. And then I'm going to turn the controller Hopefully the right way. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I'm the wrong way around. Yep, I had the wrong way around. Alright, so you can see there, once you wire them up the right way, it is working pretty well. So we have the green one, which has got the resistor on the end of it, and it's on the positive side. I must have turned the controller the wrong way. And then the white one is connected to the negative side. And you can see there it's very, very easy to bring up and test one of these things. We just need the resistor and the two cables. So what we're going to do is take the body shell here and put it in the position where it would normally go, which is right here in the slot right there. Now right away you can see right there there's some light bleed through the body shell. So we're going to have to go and clean that up a little bit by using some paint or something like that. So that's probably where we would normally have it, and you can see it's going to light through the body shell. So we're going to have to go fix that with some paint, and I'll do that and then show you the result. Likewise, here you can see I can get away with probably one of these LEDs to cover the marker and the headlight, and then on this side, move it back. On this side you can see it's going to cover the tail, or sorry, the side marker. You can see that there's still some light bleed through, so we're definitely going to have to fix that, but you can see it's going to work pretty well. So it's kind of a neat trick, because of the way the LED or the light configuration is done on 66, we can get away with 3 of these. So I believe you can get the warm white ones for about $7 on Amazon. So you're looking at, you know, $7 will do. We'll give you 5, I think. So you got 1, 2, 3 here. So it's all over with 2 spares. And we'll probably fashion some sort of 3D print thing to hold those in place. Alright, so what I'm going to do next, and the last thing in today's video, is I'm going to show you how to go about actually soldering up one of the red lights, or any lights, onto one of these boards. So okay, so this here is our surface mount rework station. This one is like many of the ones that you can buy on Amazon, and it basically has a soldering iron that's hooked up to it that you can control the temperature with, and it also has a hot air gun, which is basically this thing here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the hot air gun on. You can probably hear it going, and you can see that its temperature here is up to 100 degrees. You need to be careful because it will kick out some heat, and it's going to also start to flicker the lights a little bit, which is because I've got this LED light bar. So I apologize now if it's going to cause people some issues. So we're going to up the temperature on this. The solder paste melts at about 270 degrees. So we're going to up it to about we'll up it to about 300, and it should be good. So we're going to let that warm up. This thing should flick and then start increasing as the temperature does. You basically set the airflow here to its lowest setting, and then when you're ready to melt stuff, you increase it basically. So you can see there it's set on 300. So the next thing we're going to do is prepare the board for soldering. Alright, so for the next bit you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need your red LED, or the colored LED you're going for. You're going to need the solder paste, and put the appropriate nozzle on it. You're also going to need a test board. I'm going to use the one that I broke earlier, just because I'm going to cut it anyway, so I'm going to do it down off here on the corner. So you're going to need that. Here's some smaller pieces that broke off earlier, which I guess I could use, but I'm going to use the good end of this and do that. The other thing you're going to need is a wire, 2 wires. I've got one end that's got a fairly decent long length on it for the Crocodile clip, and then you got a really short piece that's been you removed the insulation from, and that's going to go into the board. The reason this is short is you want it to latch onto the board, but you don't want it sticking out. You want to try to have as flat a surface as possible for the LED to go on, which you'll see in a minute. And then likewise, I've done the same thing with the orange wire. The orange wire is going to be the negative, and we'll use the black wire for the positive. You're going to need a really good pair of tweezers. I'm using these electronics tweezers, and the reason for that is you're going to need this really fine point, just so that you can position and pick up and manipulate the LED. So this is a relatively straightforward process. You're also going to need helping hands with magnifying glass, because you're basically not going to be able to see the LEDs. They're quite small. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute. The tricky part is basically the LED, because it's so small. So I'm going to twist, hopefully, this off and set it aside, and I'm going to twist on the nozzle here for this. The next thing I'm going to do is, I apologize if this doesn't stay on the camera, I'm going to take the LED out. So to take the LED out, you need to be really careful, because I've lost several of these. I'm actually going to try to put the magnifying glass in front of the lens here. It makes it a little harder for me to show you what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll be able to see it. I'm going to peel back this just by one to expose the LED, and then I'm basically just going to very gently turn it over, and LED comes out, and you can see there this very tiny thing is your LED, and if I flick it over, you'll see that's the LED. That's the side that lights up, and then this side here, the green dot, I don't even see that on the camera, but basically you'll take my word for it, there's a green dot on there that denotes the positive side. So I'm going to set that aside, and you gotta be real careful. I can still see it without the magnifying glass, but it's really small. You sneeze, it's gonna go away. Now the upsides to, like I said, buying them without pre-wired is you get a whole bunch more for a lot less money. The downside is you have to wire them, and you'll see here in a minute that may be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what you're wanting to do. So I'm going to move the body shell, like I said, out of the way so that it does not melt, and I'm also going to set the chassis out of the way as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is hold the board, because it's going to get really hot. I have no idea how hot this is. It's actually going to get to about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how hot it's going to get. So the next thing you want to do is get your wires. So you take your wire, and basically I'm doing this off camera, so I'm doing it on camera, so it's a little tricky for me to do this, but basically you want to just get it so it sits in there, and it may not. Another option would be to do it from the other side of the board, but that makes it difficult to install it in the train, so I'm going to do it this way, and I may end up just having to hold the wire in place. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So you take the solder paste here, and you squeeze, maybe you squeeze a small amount out, like so. And so I can still feel that I have the wire in there, which is good. Now I'm moving my hand out of the way, and I'm also going to move this out of the way so I don't melt it. You can sort of still see what's going on. And I'm going to up the temperature, or the fan speed of the hot glue gun, or sorry, hot glue gun, the freaking hot air gun, and trying to brand myself, and basically just do this until it melts off and turns into solder. Now obviously it's still going to be liquid until I move it away. So once it starts to look like solder, oh, it's starting to get hot. Burn my hand. Alright, so you just basically blow away the LED. You basically want to let that sit there for a minute or so, and usually you can tell it's still. Now I had the board slanted slightly so you guys could see, so the solder joint's actually kind of down here a little bit when we really wanted it up here, so I may have to redo this with it flat, but we will see. Yeah, you can see the wire there is still moving around. So if that happens to you, what you can do is I have some already sitting aside here. I've got a paper clip that I've been using to just pick up the solder paste. So I'm going to go and dump some right there where the wire is. Going to turn the thing up again. And then turn it back down. Okay, that worked a little bit better. Alright, so I take my hand off of that, and if I move the magnifying glass back into place there, you can see now we've got a successful solder joint with that wire. So what I'm going to do now is the hole directly next to it, I'm going to go and do exactly the same thing, and I'm going to do it with the orange wire. So I'm going very carefully. The orange wire too, I think if you look here, has a little bit more thread, has more oh, you should use solid core wire, by the way. Don't try to use stranded wire. I mean, you could use stranded wire, but you're going to make your life a lot harder than if you used solid core wire. And you can see there, this one's got like a little bit longer kind of a wire to it where I stripped it, so I can sort of bend it a little bit to hold it in place so I don't have to hold on to it, like so. Okay, maybe if it wants to cooperate. So one way you can do it is kind of wrap the wire around the top there like that. It'll also hold it in place. So hopefully you can see there on the camera that that's in place. So I'm going to go take my paper clip with the paste on it. Once again, this is solder paste. I'm just going to cake it on to the wire. One thing you want to do is you just kind of want to make sure it's just going to stay in that one spot. And I'm going to flatten the board out just a little so that it doesn't run into the joint that we just created a minute ago. Now I'm going to turn the heat gun up again. And this time I'm going to leave the thing there so you can kind of see the reaction with this. It's kind of cool. I'll try not to melt the magnifying glass. So that was one of the problems I had before, was like I said, the wire can pop out, and that's actually the wire from the outer solder joint has now popped out. So I fixed one and I've caused myself a problem with the other one. So let me move this out of the way, get it back in place, and I'm gonna have to redo that solder joint and try not to mess up the other one. I probably should have wrapped it around like I had done with the first one. This is where things start to get a little dicey. But again, this is like just the third one that I've done, so bear with me here. Alright, so I'm going to turn the heat up again, and hopefully, if I try to get it from this angle, maybe it will. I think that's worked out. Let's turn the heat down on that. So you can see there, I've got my solder joint that I created for the negative wire, and I got my solder joint now for the positive wire. I'm going to take a snip and just cut that piece off, and then we're going to go and show you guys how to install the LED, which is the fun. Alright, so the last piece now is the LED, which is the fun part. So we want the LED, which is this here, if you can see that in the thing, but basically it looks like the green dot is on the right hand side there, so I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can sort of see the pads on it if you can see it. It's might have to zoom in. It's pretty tricky with the GoPro to do anything zoom wise, but basically we want to drop it so it's oriented correctly. So you go turn it around. I think that's the positive side, so we're gonna go and flick it around, and it's in the right position now. And so what we're going to do is we're basically going to put some solder joints, some solder paste in between the two here, drop the component on it, and then heat the board from underneath, which is pretty tricky to do when it's low. So I'm going to go move it. I don't know if I can make this work. We'll try. I don't think there's any way to make the magnifying glass get there, so I'm going to move the magnifying glass out of the way. And so what I'm going to do is you guys will have to see this the same way I'm seeing it, which is not great. And so what we're going to do is dump, first of all, make sure it's perfectly flat, level, so we don't lose our LED. And then we're going to put the paste here in the middle, like so, and just pull it back out so it doesn't keep spewing everywhere. So the next fun part is to take the LED, not drop it. This is real, and I've launched it. Alright, I'll have to get another one. Okay, so you can see here, I've put it inside the paste, and what I'm going to do now is fire the heat gun up, and I'm basically going to hit this from underneath. And you gotta be careful, because what can happen is the LED can start to move on you, and it becomes a race of trying to get it back in the right position. Okay, so that is basically it. If I did it right, that will cool in place. It's not moving. It's liquefied the flux here, so I should not be making contact or anything. So yeah, so it's basically like that. You can see we've connected the two solder joints, and hopefully it'll work. So I'm gonna turn the heat gun off, or hot air gun off. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is test it out by hooking up a resistor and the appropriate wiring to it. So remember, the resistor goes on the positive side here, so unless it spun around, that should still be the positive side. So we're going to wire it up with some Crocodile Clips and see what we get. Alright, so I've got a 500, I think these are 560 ohm resistors. So I'm going to attach this black cable on one end and attach it to the track like so, and then the other end of the resistor I'm going to attach this green cable to, and then I'm going to attach the green cable to the black wire that we soldered in. So this is the other end of the black wire that's soldered onto the board. I still have it wrapped around the board here just so that it sort of stays in place. Then I'm also going to need another probably should have unfolded these before. Alright, so I'm going to take this yellow wire, and I'm going to connect it, sorry, the camera there, I'm going to connect it to the orange wire, and then untangle it here. Sorry, I'm going to move the camera a little bit, so I apologize for that. And I'm going to wire this to the other side of the track, and hopefully, if everything's good, and I wired it the right way around, and there we go, we have a red LED light. And it worked on the first go. So it's a little strange. You know, I'm used to, when doing electronics, to be kind of precise, but this is sort of more of a toss the paste on there, throw the LED in the mix. As you saw, I had to try to keep it level with the connection, but now we've got a good connection and it looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do next, to use this in the Loco, I'm going to take the Dremel tool and just cut it out, and then it'll go inside the Loco, and we have both of those set. Now I could do the same thing for the yellow and white LEDs. In fact, when I bought these, I got these off of eBay, they came in a pack like this with lots of different colors. I think I got 360 pieces. I think each one was you know, in different colors and so on. So it's about I don't know, there's quite a lot you can see on the strip here. I haven't actually counted how many it's on, but those are the red ones. And this one has a whole bunch of colors, orange, green, yellow, red. So you can make signals this way, do other stuff. It's pretty cool. So yeah, so that's basically it for today's video. I wanted to show you guys this process of building this board and connecting the LED and the wires to it. So right now you can see we've got it jury-rigged to the track using Crocodile Clips. So in the next video, we'll come up with a way to wire it in to the DCC plug here. And so what we'll do is we'll have something that will go into, we'll do the same thing that the DCC plug does. So I'll show you how to use a multimeter to figure out the wiring of the DCC plug, and then we'll basically use similar connectors to this to duplicate the plug and hardwire the lighting into this, and then we should be able to pull the power from the track. And we also need to do some more elaborate circuitry to allow us to do different lights for different directions. It's not too hard, it just involves a few extra components. So we'll probably do that in the next video. We'll see how complicated the next video gets. But yeah, so hopefully this guy will give you an idea of what needs to be done. Now what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to put some paint on the chassis of the Loco to stop the bleed through, cut this and get it ready to roll in the Loco. So next week's video I'll show you the end result of that, and then like I said, we'll move on to some more complicated stuff. That's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave it in the comments below. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoy it, and until next time.